Hello and welcome to episode 6 of Champion the Gamer. I'm delighted to be joined by Kerr9000, an episode I've wanted to do since I started it because people are fascinating to me. And in terms of fascination, this guy is layered beyond belief. Kerr9000, how are you? Welcome on.
Oh, I'm great, mate. Thanks for having me on. I'm very excited to be here.
It's fabulous to have you on because you're such an interesting guy. There's so much to you that doesn't get enough shine ever. And I can't wait to hear more about it. And if we do, we'll start with Creator Origins, as we always do. Let us know about how you got started on TikTok, what your creation journey is like, or where it came from, what inspiration is.
Well, it's my daughter I've got to thank for being on TikTok because typical old person thing, I had no idea what TikTok was. I didn't know what people were doing on there. I started out on YouTube and Screw Attack, and I think my first videos for that was back in 2009. And I'd gone through periods of doing loads and then having a break. I'd, I'd stopped doing YouTube because I was writing books at one point, and then I went back to YouTube. And it was just a conversation with her on the phone one day. She went, "You're on YouTube with all these video game things. Are you aware YouTube's an old man thing? Nobody watches YouTube. Nobody cares about YouTube. You're screaming into the wind on there. Do you know if you put the exact same stuff up on TikTok, instead of getting like 3 views, you'd get 300 or maybe even more?" And I was like, "Well, what's TikTok?" So I had a little, old person, young person conversation there. And yeah, she's the one that really got me on the train. And then once I got onto TikTok, it's a lot more community focused than YouTube. YouTube, you're creating on your own, and it's very rare anybody like steps forward and asks you to do it or asks much of you or questions you. And on TikTok, there's a very friendly vibe that you're in there with fellow creators and they want to know your opinion and they want to collaborate, and it's just a lot nicer.
It's like I like the way you put that because I mean, Boxy again said like family, like there is
Yeah.
a real community feel to it. And I think people that don't understand what it is at first might be a bit off put by it or a bit, I don't want to trudge into that, but actually just put yourself out there and do it. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. And you said there about writing books. What did you used to write about?
Horror books mostly. Mostly short horror stories, like where you'd have a book with 3 or 4 stories in. Very Stephen King related because I grew up reading his stuff and was obsessed with him.
So
So
very
Tales from the Crypt sort of thing.
yeah, I was gonna say very because that's quite a niche thing to do, is it? I would say.
It's a very strange thing to do when you're dyslexic that struggled with English in
Yeah.
school, but
Because did you do that when you? How long did you do that for? Have you always been a writer? Always been like a, you know?
well, I got in trouble back in junior school because instead of doing the lessons, I had little jotters and was writing horror story books. So,
Because has that translated to gaming though? Like, do you take notice or take stock in how well a game is written? Because I know a lot of stories can be told really well in movies and stuff like that. Me and Metro Revival mentioned books and stuff, but how do you find game writing? Is that something you take notice of or not?
yeah, I think it does make you a bit more, well, on one side critical, but on the other side appreciative of when there is actually good character development and when they've actually gone to the trouble of making a world that you care about. And I think really game writers have got a harder job than book writers because take something like Skyrim Oblivion. You can come at that world from so many different angles. And if you're writing a book, you've got to think about your main adventurer, what he's doing, where he is, and the rest of the world doesn't matter. When you write this game, every corner of this world you've built has got to have some life fleshed into it. So when it's done really well, I think it's an excellent art form that just doesn't get the recognition it deserves.
Does that justify 50,000 versions of Skyrim though?
Well, I think the problem there is that it was so popular, it's just a license to print money. So they've just gone bang, this system, bang, that system, oh, 20th anniversary pack, 30th anniversary pack. But it does cost a lot to make a big game like that. So I know they must be very conscious of trying to eke every last penny out of it.
Because Skyrim to me, I've never really tackled Skyrim to be honest. I just find it too daunting because there's like a level of things where like games are quite a daunting thing to try, like Dark Souls. If you're on the outside looking in, it seems a really sort of polished, even unpolished version of a story and a thing and a world, but it's so rich in like fandom that it's quite
Oh,
a
yeah.
daunting place to try. But there we are. All right, so we can get into more about who you are later, and we put some spotlight on that. But we'll jump into our hot takes and solid debates. Now, as ever, if there's a hot take you've got to throw at me, you can, or I can throw one at you and get your reaction. How do you want to tackle this?
The one hot take I've got, I'm not sure whether people would agree, disagree with this. I actually think the Sega Saturn was a better system than the PS1. It was just massively mishandled.
Right, we're going to get into that. So, what gives you that? Wow. Okay. What gives you that impression or idea?
When they were making the Saturn, it was very much like a 2D powerhouse that could tackle Sega arcade games in the home. I think they rushed to bring it out, but also they saw the PlayStation was being this 3D console. So they tried to make a machine that had been built from the ground up as a 2D powerhouse suddenly do 3D games when it wasn't initially intended for that. And they just got stuck in trying to do what they thought people wanted from them. And that ruined it as such. If it had stayed, if they'd have brought things from the arcade like Golden Axe Revenge of Death Adder, things that hadn't come to the home, it would have done really well. But they just got stuck in this idea of we've got to beat the PlayStation at being the PlayStation.
I love this because I'm not well versed enough to say, oh, I can fully agree with it. But as someone that got the Saturn and the Dreamcast like late, so like in my later years, it's obvious how badly they were marketed and how they were pushed to the public. Because, like you just said there, like I think about in the Dreamcast, right? The Power Stone games and all the kind of 2D but not 2D fighters that utilize the system are
Mm.
so good. And if they'd just stuck to their guns and done the right thing and built it up slowly, it probably worked out amazingly well for them. But how I don't know, it's tough because the PlayStation 1 is so like diverse in what it offers. Was they really on a hide into nothing, or could they have changed something and made it a bit different and survived? What do you think?
I think the problems with the Saturn start with the Mega CD and 32X because they made these live support systems for the Mega Drive, which more the 32X than the Sega CD, but the 32X came out. There wasn't that many games for it, and then the Saturn came. It felt like people had been made to waste their money on the 32X. They'd been sold it when it wasn't needed. And I think people that brought that then had bad will towards Sega and didn't want the Saturn because they're like, well, are you going to dump this in no time? Is this going to be another wasted money? If they'd have gone Mega Drive Saturn, things would have been a lot better. And I think the Dreamcast was an incredible system. I think well ahead of its time, but it was just built on the back of so much bad will. If that had been a more linear path and not so much money wastage for consumers, it could have been massive. It had things that didn't come to its competitors till much later. The online, four joypad ports as standard, the interesting memory card with the LCD screen in. It was a brilliant machine. It just came off the back of a lot of bad will.
One thing I think the Saturn doesn't get enough credit for, by the way, is again I got it. I want to say I'm going to get this wrong, probably 2020 or 2019, because I started collecting properly a couple of years prior, and the Saturn was one I really wanted because I didn't have as a kid. But when you play the Saturn, it feels like it's just wrong for it. It feels like a console. It feels like a home system that you could use, and it feels like a gaming system. And that's not really well described, if that makes sense. But I love it, and I really wish I'd had it when I was a kid because I think I'd have more of an appreciation for it. Because some of the games are amazing. Like the Tomb Raider port is much better than the PS1 port, in my opinion. The racing games make sense. The way it uses Daytona is obviously awesome. So, in terms of hot takes, I think I'll take it as a I agree with you thing. I just wish I was around back then to understand more about what went wrong and
Yeah.
but that's interesting. I will definitely, yeah, I like it actually.
If you look into the Japanese Saturn's sort of game library, they had so many more games, and there is a lot of 2D based stuff. So,
Oh,
because
you need to. That's a very good segue because that's made me think about Up Up Down Down, the YouTube channel. There's a guy called Xavier Woods, Austin Creed. That's his second and third
oh,
name.
the wrestler, yeah,
Yeah, and he's a massive Saturn guy. And he have you seen the episode where he goes to the Last Gamer in Australia?
no, no,
is quote unquote the biggest game collector in the world, Last Gamer, and they're talking about the Saturn on there, and he said that the Japanese, if that had been a more accessible thing earlier for the Western consumer, it would have changed the landscape massively because they'd have basically saved Saturn
Yeah.
because of the library they had and the fact it was so accessible for them. It made a massive difference.
Yeah, I think it probably would have been.
Yeah. Um. All right. So, have you got any more, or should we move on? Because I'm curious about these next three.
We can move on. I
All
would say
right.
the
No worries.
N64 pad's trash, but I know that'd get me a lot of heat.
Whoa. Which? What? The normal one?
Yeah, I can't stand it. I like the N64, don't like the pad. You know, whenever the games have come to Virtual Console or they've ended up on some compilation later on, those games are incredible when you can play them with like a Wii Classic controller or something else. I mean, they were good back on the N64, but you were stuck playing them with what you were playing them with because that was the only choice. But some of them, like when I got Ocarina of Time on GameCube and suddenly you're playing it with a really comfortable pad, it just gives it a whole new life. It doesn't
So,
feel
because
like you're
obviously,
struggling.
yeah, because obviously we do a lot of we focus a lot on retro gaming stuff generally, right? And you see now, can't remember which video it was. I think it might have been Yorkie Gamer or someone. Basically, someone had put out you can get the USB, not USB, Bluetooth controllers. So you
Yeah.
put your old school memory card looking thing into the controller. Use a PS4 controller for PS1 games. Do you think that is good for gaming, or should we be looking to keep it to more original hardware? I'm thinking more about the accessibility for younger kids now, because like you say, the compilations for N64 games would put more eyeballs onto those games than what you might if you only had the old hardware. Do
Yeah.
you agree? Do you agree that newer stuff is making it easier for people in a good way or a bad way?
I think it's a good way. I mean, you've got to think a lot of these consoles are breaking down over time. N64 pads break. You see a lot where you pick them up and the sticks like wobbling all over the place, which, you know, people can repair. They can go in and put new sticks in. But then you've got that old thing where when is a broom no longer the original broom? If you change the head and then you change the hand, well, that starts happening with
Fabulous
consoles and
reference, by the way.
controllers. Yeah.
Fabulous reference, by the way. Yeah.
So I think you need like the retro game consoles that play NES games, because one day it's going to be very hard to get original hardware that functions.
Mm.
I saw something that I think was on TikTok that really peed me off the other day, and it was a guy trying to get people to let him buy their old broken consoles and computers for, you know, small amounts of money, like cash for gold. Sort of, they're going to rip them apart and take the gold soldering off stuff. I'm not thinking, well, that's an absolute prick thing to do because you're going to smash up a console which could have been spare parts for another console or could have been brought back to life with new capacitors or whatever. Every one of these that goes in the bin is a piece of history lost.
That's how I see it because it is a piece of history. Like I was talking to Retro Revival about our like collections and stuff, and I'm like, one day I hope my kid has a chance to see these and keep these because that's what they're for. It's a look back in time. And as much as I think that I would save some money by not having it potentially, and I will never shy people away from buying these, these little handheld consoles you can get, or
Oh
the
yeah,
TV ones that have got 20,000 games on them. So as long as the games are being played, but somewhere someone is maintaining the actual stuff, I'm happy. I don't mind that. That's completely fine. All right, so we move on to coaches' questions. This is a chance for me to pick out two or three, or depending on time, for little questions that I put on my TikTok videos, throw them at the person in front of me and see what their reaction is, get there on the spot, go to. Our first question is, which part of gaming have you got zero interest in?
that's actually a hard question because I play all sorts of things. I play massive, large RPGs. I play Fortnite, and I know a lot of people sort of like to shit on Fortnite.
You've
But
got a young one, it's fine.
well, no, she's 22 in uni. She tried to get me to play it, and I didn't. My nephew's got me playing it, and then but it's become a thing me and my missus play together. You know, an hour a fortnight before bed, sort of thing. It's a routine. There's that, and then cuddles, and then sleep. It's part of daily life. But oh, I don't like, and this is sort of off the back of Fortnite. Either release a £40 game or release a game with battle passes. When you get a game that goes, I'm going to be 49.99, but you're going to have to spend £16 a month on a battle pass as well, and there's going to be DLC as well. Pick a lane. You try and get money off me in 45 million ways, you're not going to get it. There's only so much money you've got to put into, and I just think it's greedy when you're going to go 40 quid starter price plus battle pass plus DLC. It's
Will we ever reach a point on the curve where microtransactions are so egregious that there'll be a revolt in some way? Or is it just going to continue to get worse and worse and worse?
I think the problem is that the people who would get annoyed by it are getting older. And, one day we'll die and nobody will remember what it was like for us pre DLC, pre battle passes. And new people who've only just come into the world, a battle pass and 47 pieces of DLC and horse armor and whatever will become the norm. So they'll accept it because it's all they've ever known. And they'll, before we pass, we'll be like in the nursery going, in my day, I remember when you got the whole game on one disc.
I've already had that conversation with someone about autosave.
Yeah.
Like you just don't recognize how much of a character builder it was to not have autosave or save in general, frankly. And yeah, all right. So number 2, which game surprised you the most? This is open to interpretation, but which game surprised you the most?
I mean, that possibly could be Fortnite because I only went on it under duress thinking, oh, modern gaming past crap. And, oh, I'm loving this. Oh, I'm doing. Oh, kill 4 people. Oh, wow. And you're like, oh, shit. I've basically took the pee out of Fortnite for years and now I'm here going, I love it.
I think there's always those games that have a stigma, right? And then once you actually play them, you're like, nah, this is all right.
Yeah.
I can live with that. I'm yet to do that with Fortnite, honestly, because I just don't want to go anywhere near it. But there has been games in the past where I think we've mentioned videos about them where you put off playing them for so long, whether it's a false tribalism or you're just, I'm not having it. It's not for me, that. Okay, I'll give you one. Final Fantasy IV. I was told for ages, don't play Final Fantasy IV. It's so different. It's a dungeon crawler. It's, as someone described to me, the Dark Souls of Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
I adore Final Fantasy IV. It is awesome because it's so simple. Such a simple format. So there's always those ones to do. Okay. So what are you thinking that is something in your collection you're sure no one else has?
Oh,
This is always tough.
I've got a lot of things which are, limited. Not lots of people have got them. Like I've got cube games like Fire Emblem, which I love,
Oh,
and that's
yes,
probably my favorite cube game. But I know other people have got it. Obviously, not a lot because it's going for hundreds online and stuff. Um, that's the thing. You used to think you'd got stuff that was so limited, so rare, and you get online and you get in these communities, and suddenly you see a lot of copies of something because there's people who are as passionate and diehard as you who've been chasing these things. So you're like, oh, it's not rare. It's rare, but it's not unheard of. Um, I think there's very few things that you ever get in life that nobody else has got. I've got something not video game related, which I know is one of a kind, and it's nerdy.
Mm.
I've got carpenter's plans from Star Wars: The Phantom Menace that should have been burnt. And
Right, that needs explaining. So where have you got that from? How did you come across this?
well, the story behind it is video game related. I had a metal tin with about 40 Japanese Mega Drive games in it. And a friend of my mum and dad's, they'd got 2 kids that were a bit older than me, and they'd got no games. So I lent them this tin, or one of them the tin. Now, he basically went out and sold it for drug money, which absolutely gutted me. There's games that were in that tin that I still haven't managed to replace because they were pretty rare. Yeah, I could go and spend 100 quid and get one of them, but you don't want to. His brother was a carpenter. So he came to the house one day with a bundle of papers wrapped up and said, these are for you. These are as way of an apology for my brother and what he did to you. I know you like Star Wars. Here you go. I hope this, makes up for it, which it does because it's one of a kind. This shouldn't exist. Still miss that tin though. But
Listen, we take the win we can get it because that's I've never heard something like that before. That is amazing. Because I mean, where have you put it?
um, basically sealed them behind plastic and hid them away.
I was going to say like I'm not even a Star Wars guy, but that would be like because my claim to fame, my connection with Star Wars is from childhood because my dad used to like Peter Cushing is from where I'm from,
Oh
and
yeah.
uh, we used to go in his pub and everything. And my parents used to go to where he used to live in Whitstable, and that was the connection there. So anything that's Peter Cushing related, I always seem to have a sentimental value for. But if I had something like that, I think I would treasure that massively.
I mean, it's funny because I think it might be to do with being autistic, but you go through absolute periods of obsession with stuff. And pre-video games, my obsession was Star Wars. So I do have a lot of Star Wars figures. I have a Star Wars collection. I've not added to it in the slightest for 25 years, maybe, but I've not sold any of it. It all still exists. It's all still there. And sometimes I do think you could have a lot of games if you sold that.
Yeah,
But,
a lot of Star Wars games too.
well, yeah,
Have you just out of curiosity? Then have you got a favorite Star Wars game?
I really like the GameCube Rogue Leader game. Is it Rogue Leader
Yes,
2? Yeah. That's what I brought a GameCube for. That was my first game on that system.
yes. I played because I got from a local. I got the Rogue Squadron, Rogue Leader. There's another one, isn't there? I'm forgetting. But also on the back end of like the stack he had was that pod racer game. I can't remember what it's called now.
Yeah,
Star Wars. That is shocking, but I love it because of it. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a cartoony pod racer thing.
yeah.
The Star Wars games as games, I can play for hours. The movies, I'm going to avoid chatting about that, but that's not really my thing. All right, cool. So we move on to the creator spotlight. This is a chance for you to highlight creators that you super enjoy, or the type of creator you enjoy. Mention names if you want to, or simply highlight some traits and some things that make people interesting to you.
The thing here is, because we've said it's like a family on here, there's a massive list of people that I could read out. There's Harley Q, there's Holly Retro, Video Game Viking, Retro Sazzy, Mediocre Retro, Atomic Retro, 8-Bit Barber, Video Game Viking. All of them are great people, and I could talk about them. But I'd like to talk about, and it's probably going to sound weird, I'd like to talk about two people that have passed away very quickly. Um, I'm on a forum called G Arcade, and basically it's both retro and modern gaming, but it's an old school forum where there's all different bits. There's a retro bit, a modern bit, you know, general other bit. And these two lads, one was called Ironhide, and he'd got Duchenne muscular dystrophy, which basically your muscles and stuff in your body waste away, and it causes all kinds of complications. And he was a fantastic guy. He used to go on this forum and he used to tell everybody about what he'd been playing, played a lot of XCOM, things like that. And he did it with adaptive controllers to, help him get past his disability. And he got them from a charity called Special Effect, which is a very important charity because it helps disabled people that otherwise wouldn't game. But the guy was amazing because he was suffering all this stuff and he was never dour, never down, never. He was like picking other people up and trying to make them happy and trying to get them into gaming and trying to spread joy. And you just think when things are so rubbish for you, and yet you've got such a positive, loving outlook on life, it's amazing. And there's him and there's another guy, Melatonin, who I wasn't as close to, I'd not talked to as much, but he was a fantastic guy. And unfortunately, he ended his own life recently. Both of them have very recently passed away, and it's really affected the whole forum. There's a lot of outpouring of upset, but also a lot of love, which, it's you there's some of these people that you don't meet or you do meet, you meet them very infrequently. You might have a meet up at to do with your online thing once every sort, but they can still sort of do a massive part of your life. And that forum, J Arcade, is coming together from the 17th of September onwards to do online streams and various other things to raise money for these two guys. And what they're raising money for is to do a 50-50 split of all donations to Special Effect, which helps disabled gamers, and Child's Play, which is a charity that helps provide games and stuff for children that are in children's hospitals and that. So I just wanted to push that really, that if you go on the G, I always say J, it's G as in G for God. If you go on G Arcade, there's talk about what's going to happen on there, but I'm also going to put things on TikTok saying where it's happening and that. People will be streaming. I won't because I've never streamed, but Jasm, Genual, Ale, Peds, and Retro Core will all be streaming. And I'm hoping to pop in a few of them and talk because, yeah, I just don't want these two guys to be forgotten.
I don't think from the sounds of it they will be, because it sounds like the strength of that core unit and core group is just overwhelming. So I can't see it being anything that would be worried about losing their memories or anything. And I think it highlights something that's pretty incredible, which is how gaming can help people like that. Because, like you said about the adaptive controllers, and people can find a way to stay involved with gaming in ways that a lot of other mediums don't do or don't offer. And so to hear you talk about what they got out of it, and in turn what they then gave to other people out of it, it's quite staggering, really.
Yeah, I mean, you don't think about other people's lives sometimes, and you don't think how lucky you've got it, and you don't realize how much some of the people around you affect you in a good way. And yeah, and I mean, this is one of the things I wanted to be on here for because, like I've said, TikTok, we're all a family. There's so many of us that are content creators that, yeah, we're trying to get our own stuff out there and say our opinions, but we're also bouncing off each other and helping each other up along the way. And, you know, it's great. And it's the good side of the internet. You often hear the bad side of the internet, the horrible things, but this is the nice side. This is what the internet at its highest, most pure form should be for.
Oh, 1,000,000%. I mean, I've said in the past that because I used to get comments, not so much now, which is kind of worrying. Maybe I'm coming across differently, but I used to get comments all the time about how positive I am and how like I'm always uplifting people and I'm always smart. I have bad days too.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just a case of how you present yourself, I think. But the people that I gravitate towards, and the reason I use the word real or authentic is because they never push themselves as purely positive or purely negative. They're just being themselves, and people innately then understand that they come from a real place. And
Yeah.
there is ups and downs, and there is ebbs and flows, and that makes me think they're more of a real person. So I will be more likely, you know, gravitate towards them, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's one thing I really appreciate about your page is that you've mentioned about your weight loss journey and about your struggles and whatever, and that's for one inspiring because not a lot of people will talk about that. I mean, I had the Yorkshire Gamer on, and he mentioned about his charity stream and stuff, and some of that stuff is just like overwhelmingly powerful. And I said to him, same thing I say to you. Sometimes you simply putting that out there, not enough people will be able to say thank you, but people will be thanking you from somewhere else.
Yeah.
You might not always hear it, but I think it's important to mention that it will be out there somewhere. So whatever you do say does either resonate or have a powerful impact on. So I think it's incredible what you're doing and what they're obviously doing for that.
Yeah.
So say September 17th, September 17th.
March 17th is when they're going to start the
Oh,
stream.
March
Yeah.
17th. Oh, yeah, okay, I'm with you now. I thought it was September, and I was like, it's a little while away, but I'll
I
put
might have said September, but I was wrong
yeah.
if I did. It's
Yeah.
March.
No, I'll be sure to put that in the description because I think it's important people can see stuff like that because it does bring people together.
Yeah.
And as much as we can put out a funny video every single day, sometimes it matters to put the real stuff out there because it will help someone somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then lastly, just highlight yourself, what your page is about, what sort of content you make, what your goals are if you have any, or if you're just doing it for the love of it, do your handle, everything.
The thing is, I'm mostly doing it for the love of it. Obviously on TikTok as Kerr9000, on YouTube, I think like Instagram, oh, X is it now. Um, oh, what's the other ones? Mastodon, Blue Sky, all that sort of stuff. I do the horror. I do a bit of weight loss. I do the video games. I do some trying chocolate bars and that. I'm on my missus's TikTok a lot, who's just Jessica 1988. And weirdly, hers is well, not weirdly, but hers is a lot more viewed than mine. And never through anything have I done have I ever like achieved anything where anybody stopped me in the street. We did a silly Butlin song on her video, and it got 1.9 million views or something. And we've been stopped in the street so many times from it. It's we've got discounting places for it and all sorts. It's really surreal because it's like being a Z-list celebrity. You know what I mean? It's
I need her on the podcast.
yeah.
Yeah.
She's a gamer. She does a lot of stuff. She's very very into her Animal Crossing, her Dreamlight Valley, the sort of creative stuff, and then Fortnite, where she'll go from making a Disney Valley to screaming "die, fucking die." But
I say, because one of the last things I'll ask, one of the last questions I'll ask is on your Fortnite sort of, your Fortnite nights, who wins?
We've got a great teamwork dynamic here because I shoot too much. I'm too dumb. I run in, I kill a lot of people, but I get myself in deep shit. I get really in trouble, and then she has to come and save me. My skill's killing people. Her skill is actually staying alive and getting out of awful situations. I'll be dying in the middle of something. She'll pull up in a car, jump out, heal me, go, get in the car now. I'll get in the car and she'll save, and we'll end up winning because she saved the day. And then she'll be like, when are you going to stop running off and killing everybody and actually listen to what I say? Maybe next time.
Tremendous. Okay. So we will leave that one there. This has been an awesome chat. I'm so glad that I got you on the podcast because when I first started TikTok, we're talking December 23, I think it was, or November. One of the first pages, there was Aztec, yourself, and Retro G. And they were the three that I first came across. And I thought, this is what TikTok is. And since then, it's been nothing but positive and upwards and fantastic. And it just showed me that people can be super like rich and interesting, and there's a lot of story behind it. So for one, thank you. For two, thank you for coming on. And three, keep being you, because your page needs to blow up way more than it already is.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. It's been fantastic. And yeah, I hope you keep continuing to grow, and I'm looking forward to seeing else you have on and what they've got to say.
Yeah, as a little plug for those that are listening to this, it should be on Tuesday morning. We do actually have someone coming on this afternoon, so Tuesday afternoon, and that should be up hopefully either Wednesday morning or Tuesday. But it's nice because people have been asking me to come on, which is a bit of a wild ride for me. I sent out a message like I did with yourself, sort of seeing if people fancied it, and then since the first couple came out, there's been I'll go on that if you like. So that's awesome. Absolutely love it.
Brilliant.
So yeah, tremendous. I mean, someone did say to me it sort of feels a niche, but I was like, I don't know if it does or not. But like I say, we'll finish it there. This has been episode 6 of Champion the Gamer. Check out Kerr9000 and Jessica 1988.
I'm just checking. I've said it. Just Jessica 1988. Yeah.
There we go. Just Jessica 1988. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, pal. This has been Champion the Gamer, and I'll catch you all soon.